Good morning again, everybody. Good morning. I am so excited about our lesson. I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. Caterpillars to butterflies. Don't you just love that? Don't you love that? Before I left for Chicago, I knew what I wanted to talk about this morning, and I also knew that it was going to be an absolutely great talk. The idea from the talk came from the class that we had in July. The class, It's Not the End of the World. And the thing for me is that the class dealt with some really, really powerful concepts that are very familiar to us all. I mean, we've all heard everything that the class was dealing with, but a lot of it has become almost ordinary to us. In fact, we've heard it so much that we go, yeah, I know all that stuff. But when you really go inside, when you really go inside and begin to contemplate what this, Dr. Borisenko was saying to us in this book, and you begin to process that information within you, you find that that information that she gave us was life-changing if we're willing to work with it. But we got to be willing to work with it, okay? That's key. We've got to be willing to apply what we're giving. We can recite all this stuff. We can close our eyes. We don't even need to look at the book. Thoughts are things. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that becomes the thought. We know that, okay? And then something comes up and we say, what is this? Okay, it's a thought. Guess what? That's exactly what it is. It's a thought. Okay, so we have to be willing to work with these ideas, all right? And that's what's happened to me with this class that we had. I'm still contemplating the material in this class because this material was so powerful. You've heard it before. You've heard it all before, but I'm not finished with it. And I hope those of you who were in the class aren't finished with it either, because it's something that we can go deep with. And for those of you who weren't in the class, we're going to talk about some of that stuff this morning. Now, the first thing that we talked about, and we talked about these things that I'm going to share with you all 4 weeks. All 4 weeks. The first thing that we talked about was the theory of dissipative structures. All right? And it's also known as the second law of thermodynamics. Now, that may sound a little bit scary. You know, where is Dar taking us? You know, this is supposed to be a spiritual philosophy. She's taking us deep into the science. Well, it is called the science of mind. Remember? The science of mind. And we're talking about the basic science. I love the book that Reverend Lacey has been teaching, because the author, David Cameron Gikandi, says that quantum physics is something you really want to recognize when you start dealing with even prosperity. That you don't have to really be a quantum physicist, but you really do need to know the basics, because the basics is going to help you to begin to move through some of the things. It's going to start filling in some of the blanks that have been missing for you in this philosophy. And that's exactly what it's done for me. So let's go with the second law of thermodynamics. It says, all complex systems, from subatomic particles to human civilizations, reach a point where their current level of organization becomes unstable. Listen to this. This is so powerful. All complex systems, from subatomic particles to human civilizations, reach a point where their current levels of organization becomes unstable. They then melt down. When the old system crashes, it then reconfigures in a better way, free from the determinism of the past. This daunting event has been labeled an escape to a higher order. Can you hear this? Okay, now in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about this morning when we talk about from caterpillars to butterflies, an escape to a higher order. See? And it's great to talk about these theories. But what do they look like when they show up in our lives? Now, this is one of the quotes that we dealt with in this class every single week. Neil Donald Walsh said, "When everything changes, change everything." And the quote that we shared was, "Change is the shifting of any circumstance, situation, or condition, physical or non-physical, in such a way that the original is rendered not merely different from what it was, but altered so radically as to make it unrecognizable and impossible to return to anything resembling its former state." You hearing me? Okay. All right. And then the second quote that we dealt with every single week was a quote by Richard Bach, who said, "What the caterpillar calls the end, the master calls the butterfly." See? Now, what that said to me is that this dissipated structure, this metamorphosis that's taking place in our life, this tearing down and rebuilding that's going on in our life, is a natural occurrence. Now, I should have just heard a, "Oh, God, thank you." That's what I should have heard just then. Thank you. Okay. This tearing down and this rebuilding is a natural occurrence. Thank you. Okay. Now I know you heard me. Now I know you heard me. Okay? See, there's a divine order behind metamorphosis. See, there's a divine experience happening in this moment. Now, the reason this has been so profound to me is because I realize that for so many things that show up at our door, we look at them and they appear to be so negative. So negative. And we go into judgment and blame and unforgiveness. We experience all this. How can I forgive myself for bringing this into my life? What am I thinking? What's in my consciousness for this to be showing up in my life? I know the truth of myself. How could I have this experience in my life? How could I be experiencing cancer? How could I be experiencing lack and limitation when I know the truth of me? See? Now, this theory of dissipative structure, which is a theory that Dr. Prigogine won the Nobel Peace Prize for in 1977, when he talks about when you reach a certain point, it begins to dissipate and build up as something brand new. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't hear anything negative in that. When you come to the end of this experience, it dissipates. And something new comes forward. So maybe we can start looking at things that show up in a different way. Maybe we don't have to beat ourselves up anymore because this has shown up in my life. Maybe it has a reason. Maybe there's a divine order behind it. See, and this dissipative structure, even though it was taught, was something, it was kind of the missing link for me in Science of Mind.